Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Let's Talk podcast again. Today I have Tim Kroll. A lot of you may know him from a little show called Lego Masters. It's a very big, there's a very big catch for us there. So I'm really looking forward to diving in with Tim today. I'm going to give a little bit of a little history. We actually met through a mutual friend named Stephen Goll. He's from the telecom industry as well. A lot of you may know him. I was on their narrative podcast, was able to talk with Tim and, kind of build this professional relationship that we have. So it's been a pleasure getting to know him and being able to, now that I've actually talked to him one-on-one and listening to the podcast, it gives me a cooler, I don't know, maybe a cooler view than most behind it and listening, because I'm like, hey, I know this guy. So so Tim, I thanks for coming on the podcast. You were one of the first people I actually wrote down on my notepad to get on here. So I'm glad that you reached out.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love being able to talk and have fun and just kind of have good conversations about the life and everything that we're doing.
I love it. I love it. So, I'm going to stop talking about you and let you start talking about you. Anybody that may not know you already, who you are, where you came from, kind of just minus the professional aspect of your life, just kind of give everybody what makes Tim and give everybody kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah. I was born a long time ago, and many. So I've got 5 decades under my belt now. So we got how much time do we have for a full length story of my life? I mean, 5 decades is we got some time. But anyway, just kind of looking back on it, my dad was Army, so I was born in DC. We traveled quite a bit in regards to how we were moving and doing everything. So I don't really necessarily have what I would consider a hometown. And most people, they consider hometowns as, hey, I grew up here, I did everything. But the reality is I was born in D.C. I lived in and around Philadelphia for probably up until, I would say, about 12-ish or somewhere in that ballpark. And then we moved out to the western part of PA, lived just south of Erie in a small town called Meadville. Most people know it because of Allegheny College. Grew up the rest there. Then went out to college in Wisconsin. And then we moved back to and in college, I met my wife, Melissa, and then we got married in 1995, moved back into Meadville. I was doing a lot of flooring, carpet installation, and the bottom dropped out of the building industry. And so I had to find more work, which ended up being in Rochester. We moved from Greece side of Rochester, which is the west side, over to the east side, which is anyway. And then we moved back down to Philadelphia and that area just north of the Delaware border. And then now we're back up in Michigan. And this is where we've been now for almost 10 years of our lives. Like I said, it's kind of, yeah. And most people kind of get shocked at that. And like I said, a lot of people that I talk to, they have this home place
together as you're saying that.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of a life that it creates when you move a lot or you travel a lot. And even within Meadville where we lived, we were in 3, 4, 5 different houses when I was first married. And so we didn't have like this one home that kind of was like our establishment. So the home means something different for me, just due to the background, due to the history of that. Even growing up, I recall some things in regards to I have a brother and a sister. Both are younger, so it goes myself, my sister, and then my brother. And I just recall a lot of different pieces and parts. Back then, it was very much. I'm sure many people are going to recognize the term "the latchkey kid." That's what we were. Both parents worked. We had to basically get ourselves to school, get us back home, get stuff started, blah, 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 blah. And so that also created a lot of different components of who I am and how I think, and some of the accomplishments, or I would say the maturity, happened very, very quickly because we had to back then. And there was no choice. You didn't really truly have what we would consider a kid life at that point, because you were responsible as soon as you were old enough to think. You had to be responsible for your siblings, right? So there's a lot of things like that. I've obviously, like I said, I've been to college. I graduated there. And then I've also gone and through and done a master's degree. And then Melissa and I, we've had 3 kids of our own. My oldest is Micah, and then Zach, and then Ellie. So those are kind of just some little tidbits of my background, not the business background, but I'm honestly finding that so much of that has influenced so much of my business aspects that it almost has become inseparable at this point of who I am versus what I actually do, kind of a thing.
I love that. No, it's man, you weren't joking. You kind of been everywhere, and so it's
Just in the Northeast, I would say. Not,
yeah,
I haven't been all over. I mean, so in truth, I've visited every state except for the New England states. I've
okay.
been in every state at some point in time visiting or doing work or something. Except for the New, I have to get up into Maine and the New Hampshire. I haven't been up in that area yet, so that's kind of one of my bucket list kind of a thing. So
I love that. Yes. Talking about your family and everything, I think this is a good segue point to, what you're doing now kind of links in with, something that you started with one of your family members.
yeah,
So, maybe for those of you that already know Tim, he was on a season of Lego Masters on Fox. And so it's, where you come on as a partner and you're competing, building different prompts and everything with Legos. And so, Tim, maybe just kind of give a, you know, your own little, you're building the bridge from your professional or from your personal to your professional. Kind of how did that start?
yeah.
Just go ahead.
So it's an interesting. We've always talked, and I'll start with this because this is the basis and the foundation, and I'm sure everybody has heard this comment multiple times. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal. It's just business. And sometimes it comes out in the fact that you're getting let go. Sometimes it's a breakup of a partnership. Sometimes I mean, there's 1,000 different reasons why we hear that quote unquote phrase.
Yeah,
And as I get older and more I've learned is that there's no such thing as business and personal. Everything intertwines. Everything that impacts your personal life also impacts your business life and vice versa. And then we talk about work-life balance. And then I could go on a whole soapbox about the fallacy of a work-life balance and how that's just not an attainable idea or concept. But there are things that you can do to be healthy and to have boundaries, and there's ways to be able to create that. So starting with that foundation, number one, understanding that business is personal is really what creates the bridge between what you do and a lot of the family things and all of these other components that actually bring and tie this together. So it really started with a commitment that my wife and I had to connect with our kids on things that they were interested in.
okay,
So my oldest son, he loved fishing. I'm not a big fisherman. In fact, I haven't fished since he's left the house. But he loved fishing, and so I spent a lot of time out on the lake. We were fishing, doing a lot of stuff like that. And then for the second son, Zach, he really got into Lego, and so in order for me to connect with my boys, I found that the best way to do that is to connect with them over something that they already love, something that they were already passionate about. And the Lego aspect, what I didn't realize was going to tie in with my background and my heart of teaching and my heart of coaching individuals and the core of why I get up every morning, which is to leave an impact and change people's lives. The Lego ties in perfectly with the ability to be able to teach people in a better way.
yeah,
And so the journey that happened was one, I wanted to be able to connect with Zach. And so we started building together large, what they call mocks. And I'm going to use some terms. Every industry has these, but a mock is an acronym. It's MOC, and it's my own creation. So we started
dive
building.
into it as deep as you want. We got,
Yeah, well, but it helps to understand. Like in every industry we have these terms, right? But I want to make sure that people understand because it's a mock is definitely my own creation. So we built it was 2 tables, 2 tables long, 2 tables wide. So you're looking at 8 foot by what is that, a 2.5 foot table or something like that. So you're looking at 16 feet by 5 feet wide, and it was what we called the Queen's Ridge, and it was a huge castle. It flowed down into a medieval market. It had an ocean or port, I guess would probably be the best way. It had different ships that we had. Anyway, it was huge. I have pictures of it. It was really, really fun, great. We spent a lot of time building that. We then took that and started displaying that at different, what's called a Lego show. And there's a lot of different things like Brick World, Brick Fair. They're all over the United States, and you can find them. And we displayed at one of the largest. I think it's either the largest or the top 2 largest Lego shows in Chicago, and that was over Father's Day. Well, from there, our name got on a list, and then there was a casting agent that called us and said, "Hey, would you be willing to apply for Lego Masters?" And I mean, I'd heard about it, but we were very, very skeptical. Reality TV kind of a thing. I was just
Yeah.
like, it's probably not for us.
Yeah.
It's not something that I want to get involved with. And the toxicity that you see in most of the reality TV shows, I'm like, that's not family
Oh yeah.
oriented. That is
Yeah.
not something
They're
that
all about drama.
yeah, exactly. And so it didn't align with my personal values. It didn't align with what I believed in as far as in the Lego community itself was very skeptical about Lego Masters and just the love and the play well aspects of all things tying together.
Mhm.
So kind of hesitant, but we decided to start taking steps always through that path. We were like, well, we can always say no. We can always back out. Well, the first season, we actually were approached for the first season, and the first season, Zach was too young. He had to be 18. And so they
Okay.
said, well, let's just put a pause on this. And I'm like, that's actually really good because now we can kind of see how it's going to go the first season, and then we can go into the second season and possibly. And so the second season rolls around. They call us, hey, can you continue the application? So we started continuing the application, and that is exactly when COVID hit. So we recorded at the launch of COVID. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than the launch of
Yeah.
COVID. So we recorded right, and it was during the April, right after I think March is when they announced that COVID was what it was, and all that kind of fun stuff. And so it was what I would term as the most unique recording experience that probably was ever in the history of TV, television. It's not anything that anybody else will ever experience. It's not anything that anybody else will ever have to go through, I hope, just because of all of the ups and downs and all the swings that are going on. And then
Yeah.
spiritually, it just, you completely get drained of what I would call your soul, the inner part of you, because you're, again, all of the other physical, mental exhaustions and the emotional exhaustion just kind of start to eat away at that. And the other
Yeah.
thing too is this, especially when we're looking at that, the reason we didn't want to jump into reality TV or do anything was because of the story, the narrative that they always told about individuals. And so Zach and I, when we stepped into the show, our core was to say, we are going to stick to our story. We're going to stick to our values. We're going to stick to who we are as people, and the story that I wanted to portray through that was it is possible for families to have healthy relationships, to have
Yeah.
healthy, especially when you're dealing
Definitely.
with your kids. Because too often, I mean, especially in our society right now, the fathers are absent. And whether that's emotionally, mentally, or even physically absent, there's so many dads that are just not involved in their kids' lives anymore. And so I wanted to really show that there was a possibility that you could have that kind of relationship and you can show up and yet still do your business side. And that's why, again, going back to this core, business is personal. Business is it's interlocked. And so the things that we do and did on the show were really about connecting and about making sure that we continue to build a strong relationship with our family. So
Well, and what a cool, fun thing that you and your son now get to talk about for the rest of your lives. You got to have that really cool experience, and then a lot of people, most people are just watching the show and they're like, oh man, I wonder what it would be like. But you actually got to do it, and so I think that's what a cool opportunity. And so you know, going from there, kind of talk about where are you at now in the Lego experience, but also
yeah,
what are you doing on the professional side? How did the two merge together? Kind of give everybody just a little taste of what a typical you know project or anything looks like from you.
yeah. So it is what most people look at it from the outside. It feels like it's very fragmented. It feels like it's in multiple different directions. But there is a core foundation that I hold to and that we do in order to be able to I don't want to say justify, but that's almost what it feels like. Is I have to justify why there's so many pieces that come together to bring a life together like what we're doing.
Yeah,
And so let me give you the fragmented part, and then I'll tie it all back together. So
yeah,
since Lego Masters, which Lego Masters is an awesome platform, and I'm very grateful for that and grateful for the experience, but it is only a platform. It's not really my identity because I do so many other things.
sure.
So the first thing is after we got done, Zach and I, we opened a Lego store, which is called Alpine Brick. And then what we do is we actually buy old Lego and refurbish the collectible sets, and then we sell those as certified used sets. And there's a
Oh, wow.
huge aftermarket. So most people don't
Yeah,
realize how much of an aftermarket there is for Lego, but a massive, massive aftermarket for it. So we have that component. The second thing that we do is we still do commissions. So there are a lot of companies that call us and they say, "Can you build us a sculpture for
oh, wow.
your of our logo, or can you build us a building that we really love, or like there's can you build us an
That's really
animal? Can you
cool.
build us? There's all kinds of different sculpting kind of things. In fact, we've got one that's coming up here in August that I'm not allowed to talk about because I got an NDA, but it's going to be absolutely huge, and I'm excited to be able to eventually share that. So if you want to follow and find
Yes,
out more, we'll release when we're allowed
yes,
to.
please. Now I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, so it's going to be potentially world record kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes. But
Oh, very cool. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so that's another component. And then another component is what we do at the shows themselves. So we are contracted by the event coordinators to bring in some of our own mocks, some of our own displays, and then we meet and
Okay.
greet a lot of people during those shows. And this is part of what I do is I run kid building challenges for those attendees to come in and give them a little bit of a taste of what it was like to be on a show. We have pressure, we have a little bit of a
Oh,
timeline,
okay.
you've got rules, you've got a bucket of Lego, and you have to create something within a certain amount of time. And it's a fun experience, but the
That is cool.
but it's a little sneaky too. And I got to say this, it's a little sneaky because my goal on that is to create the same experience that I had with my son, so that other parents could actually
Yeah.
understand what that is like and how to be able to start to connect with their kids. And in
That's
fact,
really
side story
cool.
real quick, this little totem that I keep with me, it was given to me by a mom. And she handed this to me and she said, I want you to have this as a reminder. I was able to build with my son for the first time. And in that building, we now have been connected and now we actually build together. And so now I've got a relationship that is really something that I never had before. And so it's that's my why. I mean, that's the whole impact
Okay.
part of it. But that's one component. And then we also do what are called mosaics, where we have a big community project where we'll come in and we do big pictures, and everybody does a little 6x8 tile. They build out a like a pin dot kind of pixelated piece, and they
Okay.
put that up, and it makes a big picture. So that's another activity that we do. And that's kind of the whole Lego aspect. But let me just kind of build that bridge then in. And so what I
Yeah.
found, my background is I've always been a teacher. I've always loved working with kids. I'm a kid lead coach where we actually work with leaderships, developing in middle school and high school. I've worked with communities. I've worked with corporations where we do workshops on leadership styles and designs. And there's a whole ton of stuff. But when I started working with Lego, I found it added this component of interactive activity which activates a different part of your brain, which then
Yeah.
allows you to be able to learn in a different way and at a different pace. And the results of I started testing this for about now I'm 2 years in. I started kind of testing this locally. But what I found is people were literally able to walk away. Let me kind of back up because I'm sure you've been to a conference and everybody else has been listening, probably has been to a seminar, an event, and you're there for 2 days. You sit under some kind of a speaker and you do and listen for sometimes 10, 15 hours of all of this information that's coming in, right?
Yeah.
How often have you walked back home or flew back home and like, okay, what was I supposed to do? Like what was I supposed? You don't remember 99% of everything that everybody said, and
Yeah.
if you walk away with one thing, man, that's dude, you're like in the top percentage of people that actually implemented something from an event. It's just insane. So
Yes.
I saw that, and that's a problem, right? And so what I've done and started to do is transition instead of just being a talking head that's on stage. And there is a time and a place for that. And I don't want to degrade anybody there, but there is a time and a place. I want to create an experience that you're going to remember and tie a lesson into that. Because as humans, we think and talk in stories. And when we
Hmm.
go in and we talk on a regular personal level, we don't necessarily say, okay, point one, point two, point three, A, B, C. We don't do that. That's not how we normally talk. We talk in,
Yeah.
well, did you know what happened? Do you remember when? We talk in stories and we put that all together. So that's what I want to do when I'm teaching and doing a workshop is I want to create this interactive experience that's hands-on, that you're doing something, and then the result ends up that you will remember what it is that lesson was because you're tying it to a story, you're tying it to an experience. In fact, I did this one. This is called the series Play Duck. I did this one for the Michigan Health Department, and there was
Oh,
about almost 200 people in the room, and they all had one. And we created this fun little experiment and kind of a thing. And we did this for about 30 minutes of it, kind of created like a Mission Impossible kind of a scenario. And then everybody had to put their ducks together. And the interesting thing was this: of the almost 200 people that were at the event, there were only a few people that put their duck together the same way. And it taught about diversity, and it taught about how we're all different, and it taught about how we each have different talents, and we all look a little bit different. And they don't. Then I had them sign their name to the duck, and when they signed their name to the duck, it was just like, that is me, and that is an identity. And now they take that back home, and now they've got a little totem that they can set on their desk, and they can remember the lesson of how to be able to talk to different people and how to communicate in different ways, and how the personalities actually kind of fit together. And we need the diversity. We need those people to be different than us, because that's a value, right? So that's just one example of a lesson that we've done, and tying all of that back into what you said, like
That's
this
a fun way to
whole
do it.
aspect is I'm using Lego as a way to teach core strategies and theories and principles so that they can be applied to your daily life.
Yes, I love that. And see, Lego is more than just a piece of plastic.
Way more than plastic.
I mean, I love
It's a
that. So I'm
tool.
just, I'm,
Yeah.
this is just fun. I let you know, I'm talking to an expert in the Lego field, and so it's fun hearing about it. All kind of like the kind of, you've given a great snapshot of how the Lego community is, and so
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun to listen to, being from the outside. So I'm kind of nerding out a little bit, because I'm thinking about I'm thinking about the fun that I have when me and my kids, I actually I've got a Lego Mustang here in my office, and then I've got a Lego White House. That's what my kids and I
Yeah.
started doing since COVID too. So it's I love it. It's just it's a fun thing
Yeah.
for me to do.
And Lego
Uh,
has such a huge, interesting story behind them, as far as the purpose and what they were originally intended. And it was for creativity, it was
yep.
for education, and it was for a family to be able to get together and kind of learn in a way. And I mean, the first Lego sets, they didn't have instructions. It was just a box, and said, you create whatever it is you want to create. There was a
Yeah.
challenge to create, of the infinite possibilities. There was a challenge to create something cool. And that was the intent of Lego. That was where it came from. And there's just so many more stories and things that I could say about Lego. I could go on about trivia and all kinds of fun stuff that people are like, "What? Really?" It's amazing.
That's really fun. That's really fun. So dude, speaking of Lego, how about I'll do a fun question. What's your favorite Lego build? Let's I guess just general. What's your favorite Lego build that you've done?
I have one. You ready?
Oh, yep.
Oh, I just knocked over half of my stuff there. But this is
Ah.
the reason why it's on my desk, because this is my favorite Lego set right here.
Oh,
Okay.
beautiful.
So all of the signatures are on here. These are all from the Lego Masters of Season 2. I'm trying to watch my
That's
finger here. So
awesome.
all of these signatures, and this is actually a full set. It's brand new. It's never been opened. But this is my, hands down, my favorite set, right? And then, so I got it, and it actually goes back to a lot of the value, because I use compasses as a way to be able to talk. And if you can see
Okay.
this, let me see if I can. Yeah, I'm going to have to pick the whole thing up and bring it over. But
Oh, that's so cool.
so this is the set right here. This is the ship in the
Oh,
bottle.
wow.
And
That
I
is
have a
just
light
that.
kit the light kit, it always comes in after, and I've got some stuff that's moving around because I'm picking it up. But basically, the light kit is built so that it kind of glows, and you can see some of the lights on the top. Let me turn it off
Oh,
here though, so you can actually see the set a little bit better. But yeah, it's got a lot of reflective parts on it. But this is my
that's
favorite
cool.
set, hands down. Hands down, it's my favorite set. So
That's so cool.
yeah, so
Oh
this
man.
is definitely my favorite set. And then, I mean, we've got other things that are out and about that I've got other things that are out and about that I use and work on. But like I said, that really is my favorite set of all of them. So
I love that. So this is something that became very connect. It became very more emotionally connected for you as well, since you're doing it with your son. So it's and what a fun thing to share with one of your kids too. Is just such a fun hobby. I've got two girls, and I mean, my teenage girl, I'll get into anything she wants to, but it just embarrasses her so much. So she'd rather dad just stay out of it. So
hey, just so
uh,
you know too, and I told my kids this, and you can ask them if you ever meet my kids. The number one job of a parent is to embarrass your kids, and so my
one
kids
hundred.
all know that. So it's like, as long as
Yeah. So it's no, it's but for parents that may be looking for something to share with their kids, just because I think that like you said, it's a great way to just empower the relationship, just build it into just something even cooler. Maybe what's one piece of advice, or maybe a couple pieces of advice that you would give to parents that are looking to maybe connect a little bit more
Yeah.
with one of their kids.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff came from, and my bachelor's degree is in youth ministry, and it's working with
Okay.
kids. So
Yeah.
that's where a lot of this stuff has come from, and the reason why we established a foundation within our family is because I wanted to be able to have a chance to be able to teach. And there's an old writing that states this: if you're going to teach your kids, you need to teach them when you get up, when you go out, and when you sit down to eat. And in that concept right there, it
Okay.
is, you do not have, I think our world's broken, and there is definitely a need for an educational system. There's a need for structured education, but we've neglected the true education of parents being able to be involved in the kids' lives. And we've
Absolutely.
neglected the teaching of how to live life for the sake of math and grammar and whatever else. And those things are important, don't get me wrong, but we've
Yeah.
now made that the only education that's there, and we've skipped out on literally how to live, the EQ, or the emotional intelligence. And so many individuals are not equipped when they step out of school or step out of college. They're just not equipped to be able to handle
Yeah.
conflict. They're not equipped to handle any kind of drama or disagreements, or we don't have those skills anymore, because, and I believe this is the fact that they haven't been with the parents to be able to develop the skills to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
again, it comes back to that principle: you teach your kids, you work with your kids, you build the relationships during time spent with them. Now, the
Yeah.
the second aspect of that, so that's the first principle, but the second principle is this: is to be able to find what they're interested in. And when you find what they're interested in, what it does is, it's known in the counseling world as a mute third party, right? I have better conversations with my kids and with my significant others when there's a something there that we're not staring at each other, and there's something in our innate
Oh,
nature. Like,
absolutely.
if I sit there and I stare at you and we're having a really tough conversation or an important conversation and we're looking at each other in the eyes, it's intimidating and it's hard. But yet, when you're in the middle of, whether you're putting a Lego set together, or you're fishing, or you're taking a drive, or you're on a hike, or you're whatever it is, in those
Yeah.
times, and that's why, the original principle is when you get up and when you go out and when you sit down to eat. And that's why that principle is there, is because when you do things, it now gives the ability to be able to ask questions. And so when we're
Yes.
sitting here, and this happens so many times, whether I was out fishing or whether I was sitting down doing Lego or whatever it was, we're sitting there just having a normal conversation, just talking about the weather or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Dad. And it's like the whole environment, the whole attitude, everything all of a sudden just shifts in a moment.
Yeah.
And then an important question comes out from your kids to you. And that's the teaching moment. But
Yeah.
it took hours to get there. So if I sat down with my kid and said, "Hey, what do you think about whatever deep philosophy of whatever is going on? What do you think about that?" They're going to be like, and that's pretty much the answer that you get. But yet, when you're
Yeah.
in that situation and now you've built that relationship and you spent time with them, suddenly now they're looking at you and like, I got this situation with a classmate. I don't know how to handle it. I'm being bullied, or this person said this about me, or this happened, or that happened, or whatever. And there's so many life situations that, frankly, they don't know how to deal with, and they don't know how to ask that question. They don't know how to answer the question when you ask them directly. But when you're in that midst of being able to have that mute third party, now those questions can come up. And now
Yeah.
situations and scenario, and say, well, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And have you worked this angle? And what do you think about that angle? And giving them ways to be able to process and think through is really more important than saying, well, just do this. Because I don't
Yeah.
want to sit there and just tell my kid to do this. Now, if I give them the ability to reason, deduct, analyze, that gives them the skills to be able to be successful and understand how to handle conflict and how to be able to
Yeah.
work through disagreements and be able to work through relational issues and whatever else that's going to come up. And they have the emotional intelligence to actually think that way. So,
Yeah. Right, because you're not raising kids, you're raising humans to become adults.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, being able to connect with them, and that's something my wife and I have always, we've never talked the typical baby talk to our children,
yeah,
literally since they were born. I mean, it's just We talk to them like they're humans, and it's talking about that first point you said. That's it, I'm very lucky, and I count myself lucky as a father to have that kind of relationship with my teenager.
Yeah.
My 8-year-old is a mama's girl. It, if mommy's there, that's where she wants to be. But my teenager, we're a little closer, and so you talk to having those moments where they really do kind of open up to you. It's speaking from experience. They're they're wonderful moments to have, and it is worth the time
Yeah.
to set down your phone, put your laptop, close your laptop, and just have a nice conversation with your
Yeah.
children. I think,
Yeah. So that
and
actually,
more in society, things would be a lot better off.
yeah. So that actually leads to a third principle that we found it on. So the first one was teaching while you're doing, in all aspects, being involved, and the second one was specifically looking for interests that you can connect through, and then that
Mhm.
fourth one is understanding seasons of life and
Yeah.
not forcing your child to stay in a season. So, for example, when they are really young, we say do this and we don't give them a reason why, because it's you don't touch the stove. I'm not going to explain to a 1 year old don't touch the stove because it's hot and it's going to burn you. They're not going to be able to grasp that, right? But as they grow, they can start to grasp and understand and reason. And unfortunately, we sometimes will jump, instead of just saying don't touch this, we actually start to try to reason with a 1 year old, which you're not going to do.
Yeah.
As they get older and start to understand, now you have to give them reasons why. And then as they grow, so think of it this way: understanding that each season is going to be unique and you have to learn the skills to be able to continue to grow with that child. Now I've got a
Mhm.
22-year-old and that season's completely different. Frankly, it's harder than it was when they were teenagers. I'd almost rather go back to that time frame because now we have to be friends and we're talking
Yeah.
on a friend level, and I can't tell him what to do. Like that is not part of my job now. I am done telling him what to do. I am done at my 21, same thing. Like I am done telling him what to do. My time is completely done with, and now we're in a completely different relationship. So understand. And then one other thing too, and I'll let you know this because you said about the different connecting. My youngest son, Zach, we never connected when he was in middle school. He always connected with his mom. And then a different
Yeah.
season came along, and now he's starting to connect with me. And you have to be, as a dad or as a mom, you have to be confident and secure enough to understand that it's not you, it's just the way people connect. And it's okay. It's okay if your kids connect with the other spouse, and you have to be able to handle that and not get jealous or upset or resentful. You have to be willing to be able to do that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, my wife's had to deal with it. I've been our oldest's favorite since she was born. So.
But it could shift. Like she could, that whole situation could shift, and you have to be prepared for that
Mhm.
a parent. Everything could
Oh,
shift, and
absolutely.
but
And
it's definitely a tag team.
that doesn't mean I haven't felt the wrath of a teenage girl. I've definitely been on the wrong end of that one before.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, and I'll tie this in with the business aspect, the same principles
Yeah.
that we use to teach and train our kids are the same principles that we use to train our staff, to train our
Yeah.
employees.
I think
And
that's awesome.
they're lessons that we learn and be able to talk with. So if you're not creating shared experiences within your organization, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to be able to build a relationship to create loyalty and commitment from your employees. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
there's a principle that I talk about. It's called commitment versus compliance versus commitment, and those two things are interesting when you look at it. Compliance means that your employees are going to go across the street for $1 more per hour. Commitment means that your employees are going to stay because they're loyal to you and they like the culture and they understand that you have their best interest and that you're looking out for them. And that's a culture thing. But there's all of these things that I just talked about with the kids. They apply directly to our businesses and our staff and our employees. And you've got to, as a leader of your organization, you've got to be able to develop that.
Yeah. I think that just adds even more to the fact that you're raising your children to not be children. You're raising them to be adults that
Yeah.
contribute, and I think that's I think that's why those two teaching methods work. And with younger as with older people.
Right. Yep.
I think that there's a lesson there. There's a lesson in all of that, just to really. Um, be able to shift, be able to adapt. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. To be
Yeah.
able to adapt with your kids. That way you're even if they do pull away from you a little bit more and start talking to one of the other parents more, and you're no longer the favorite, but to figure out a way to continue to grow even beyond that. So no,
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful.
Yep.
It will tie it up a little bit. Do you have anything you have that you're especially excited about coming up? Any projects?
Yeah.
Any convention or anything that you're
2024 is going to be a huge year for us, and I'm really, really excited about it. Um, and I'll just give you three things that I can see that are coming.
yeah, go
First
ahead.
of all, as you know, you mentioned this earlier. We have a podcast called Narrative.live, and we tell
Mhm.
stories. We tell real stories of real people, and we don't talk about the successes. We talk about the failures. We talk about the hard knocks. We talk about a lot of the false beliefs that we had, the false narrative that we were following, and then we shifted into, okay, what's the true narrative that you're creating, the legacy that you're leaving behind. So Steve and I are actually planning a singular event here in Northern Michigan that's going to be pretty spectacular, because we're actually going to bring everybody together, and we're going to actually kind of look at how do we actually craft and create our story. How do we do that? So that's coming up in April. We'll
That's
have
awesome.
the website out. It's going to be, frankly, we're limited on size, so it's going to be like an invite only kind of a thing. So that is a big project that we've got coming up, and
Oh,
we're
that's
continuing to collect stories. So that's one. The second thing is we are now currently booked at about 20 different events across the East Coast. So we're going to be in multiple cities, from
congratulations.
Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Tampa Bay, Florida, Marion, Illinois, St. Louis, like all of these different cities that we're going to be going to and being able to share our Lego experience and events and things. And then the last one, well, actually, I probably have four now that I'm thinking about it. So not the last one, but
Well,
the third one is this big thing that we've got going on in August that I can't talk about, but I'm like super stoked about it and super excited about that. And then this is officially the last one, because I actually have multiple companies that have contacted me about doing Lego workshops where we do exactly what we talked about earlier, and
oh,
creating
that's
a
great.
shared experience with organizations and their staff, and learning stuff that you would just never even think that you would learn. And every time I do this, it's an aha moment, and people walk away like, this was the best experience I've ever had. So those are the four things. Like I said,
That's
24 is
really
going to
cool.
be an incredible year. We're going to be busy. I'm excited about it, but at the same time, I'm
Sounds
also a
like
little bit nervous on the timing and how much we're going to be doing. So it's a good thing
yeah,
though.
traveling can take its own toll.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, no, that's awesome. It sounds like you guys have a lot of really cool things coming up, and I'm really excited to find out what that project is. So yeah,
The only way to do that is you're going to have to follow us on either LinkedIn or Instagram, one of those two
I'll
ways.
put, I'll put
You're going
all
to
of your links in the show notes as well.
perfect. And then the better thing is, if you want to know more about what I do, you got to go to my website. It's timkroll.com. That's the easiest thing to do. I don't always post all of the Lego stuff on my website, but the social channels will have both the web and anyway, I'll have all that stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and that'll all be in the show notes for everybody. So, I like to close it off. Giving the guest what's one thing that you're doing when you're not doing any of the Lego stuff, you're not doing any of the professional stuff. Even let's say you're not even doing the family stuff. What's something that you kind of do to recharge yourself, or
Hike.
maybe a hobby outside of Lego?
Yeah, hike. That is probably my go-to. And it's
Okay,
just, there's something. We've done backpacking trips, 3, 4, 5 day backpacking trips where we're off grid, where you just don't have a signal, so you have no choice.
that's
But yeah,
wonderful.
that would probably be the one thing that I would say is the outside of what most people would even know about me.
Yeah,
We'll take 7 to 10 guys on a backpacking trip, and we'll just go and we'll just talk and tell stories, which is what it's all about. So,
yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being a guest, and
oh, this is fun.
I'm excited to see all the stuff that you have coming up.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks, man. You have a good day. See you, man.
We'll see you guys.